Welcome to the D-Spot podcast. Dr. Dana McNeil is a licensed marriage and family therapist who specializes in working with couples using the Gottman method. Her evidence-based practice provides support for the wide range of relationship issues that modern couples face. By using her open, affirming, and outside-of-the-box thinking, Dr. Dana is able to approach her work with couples by bringing both insights and tools that reflect the realities of today's complicated relationships. Dr. Dana features guests on her podcast that include a unique array of celebrities, CEOs, influencers, and everyday folks who are all working on navigating new conversations about how society views what goes into a successful relationship. And now, here's your host, Dr. Dana McNeil.
Hello, welcome to today's show. I am Dr. Dana McNeil, and I am excited to introduce a new friend of mine. Her name is Emily Silva. She's an author. She's a life coach. She's a mindfulness expert. She is amazing. So, hello, Emily. How are you?
Hello, Dana. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing very well today.
So tell us all about, a little background. Emily and I met in a very unlikely place. We were at a book show, a festival, and we both were at a genre of book author about romances that neither of us actually read very much of, but the fate brought us together. We sat next to each other. We had a lovely chat. We've continued having a lovely chat. And I really think that you're going to like what Emily has to say. I know that you'll love her personality. So tell us a little bit about your journey of where you've gotten to today. Like, I know you worked in the corporate world and you left all that behind. Tell us.
Yeah, so I worked in the corporate world. I was successful. It was awesome on the outside, but inside, I just had this prodding telling me that this wasn't it. I was pretty unhappy, although outside it looked like I had the dream life, traveling the world fixing wine, which sounds awesome. But I quit my job. It was very scary, but bravely I quit my job after learning about just how I am brave. I was in Costa Rica. I did an intuitive painting class. I had the teacher, I was the only student, and the teacher gave me the word brave, and it really had me explore bravery and what that meant to me. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, but was afraid to do, was quit my job and pursue writing, because I didn't really have like publications out there, but I wrote a lot on a blog and I really believed in my writing. So I just figured if I kept working and made myself comfortable materialistically, I would never actually pursue the writing. So I cut the cord and traveled to Bali on a one-way ticket and started writing. And while I was in Bali, I thought it would be, Eat, Pray, Love, because that was the book that was really big. And it wasn't Eat, Pray, Love. It was Cry, Cry, Cry. And just it's like once everything was taken away, or I took everything away, it's when all the other stuff came up. And so I had to start dealing with all the stuff that I had been shoving down to become successful in the corporate world. And because of that, the writing got a little bit deeper. And I came home because I figured the thing that I really wanted was love. And running away was not going to help me find the love. And so I came home and I gave myself just a base to grow from. And while I was in a coffee shop writing the book, I met a man. He sat down next to me and he just started unloading about this really sad breakup he had gone through. And I listened to him. I guess I gave him some really great advice. And he said,
So a stranger just rolls over with his latte and is like, let me tell you about my love life in a lot of detail.
Yes, and I've actually been told like several times I have a face that makes people want to tell me everything. So, and it's true because I will hear it from checkers at a grocery store. But anyway, I gave him some advice. He said, you should become a life coach. And I had never heard of life coaching. Like in the corporate world, we didn't talk about coaching. It was like sales coaching, maybe.
Yeah.
So I looked into it. And there was a Life Purpose Institute in San Diego starting classes the following month. And I thought, well, I saved some money to live and write. Why don't I educate myself on something? And so I went to the course, I got certified, and I never looked back. I really, really enjoy helping people and writing. So I married the two, and it's just been really eventful. It's not exactly what I thought it would be, but it's been one of the biggest growth experiences of my life, aside from being married.
Brave is right. I mean, I love how you listen to your intuition, and I'm imagining a lot of it was scary to hear the
Yes.
volume on it. And you're like, so anyways, anxiety, get in the car with me. We're going to write a book. We're going to go to Bali. We're going to do relationships. We're going to do things. We're not going to let that fear overtake us from pursuing what's in store for us.
Yeah. And one of the biggest, scariest things other than quitting my job was dating,
Oh,
because I had a relationship for 7 years on and off while I was in corporate America. And then it was like, I want to intentionally find my person.
mm,
And so I was very scarily put onto online dating because of a friend. She's like, you should try it. And that's how I met my husband. So it's just like all this, like ripping off band-aids
yeah.
over a course of 3 years,
Mhm.
leading me to where I'm at today.
How do you stay open to the experience? Because I'm imagining some of those old stories or messages will come into our head and it's like, shriek, run, retreat. And you kind of bravely, again, returning to that word, kind of like stood there and stood in your light and open to what happened. You didn't know that it was going to turn out well. You just knew it was going to, move forward. You didn't know that it would be positive, but how did you keep yourself going in the midst of what could have been a scary time for you?
Well, meditation was huge for me. And then, to become a coach, I had to go through the program myself. So coaching was really helpful. And then when I realized there was deeper stuff, therapy. So coaching, therapy, meditation, and just really giving myself the time that I really deserved and embracing that I was enough and deserved this time.
Mm, I love that. Is that part of your journey then that you feel like you had to go to so that you could hold that space for other people and know what it felt like from the inside so that you felt authentic when you were holding space for someone?
Absolutely. I just feel like empathy is deeper if you experience it yourself. And I think that the people that I attract are people that read my story, find parts of themselves in my story, and then I can actually hold that space for them, as opposed to maybe I never went through something and they should be with a different coach. So I do believe that our stories and sharing our stories are really important because it helps us not feel alone.
Yeah. Okay. So for those that are listening that don't know what the difference between a life coach and a therapist is, enlighten us. What are some of the major differences in your perspective?
So, in my experience, a coach is somebody that helps you move forward with something that you're currently going through, like point A to point B. A therapist really helps unpack stuff that's happened to you, and a coach is not somebody who is certified in that. So, you definitely would like to have a team,
Mhm.
because a coach is going to spend time helping you create goals and move forward. And a therapist does the same thing, but they can spend more time on trauma and maybe some anxiety and depression that you go to. Coaches can only brush over that.
So it sounds like it could be important to have both, right? Because the
Yes.
things that's internally are holding me in place so that I can't pick up the tools that you're giving me to move forward. And if you don't have the insight about why you don't use these perfectly wonderful tools, what's holding you back? Are you self-sabotaging, whatever that stuff is, that these two concepts could definitely go hand in hand together.
Absolutely. And as a coach, I've been doing it for 8 years. There's several times where I've said, okay, you seem pretty stuck somewhere. Maybe, and I'll refer to a therapist.
Mhm.
And if they're in a different state, it's like maybe find a therapist that can really help you figure out why you're so stuck, because we're really trying to help you move forward. And these are really helpful tools, but there's something there.
Mhm.
And a therapist is the perfect person to help them unpack, like, why am I not able to use these tools that are proven to help people?
How much, from your perspective, does relationships or relationship trauma or relationship injuries impact somebody using those tools and moving forward?
Well, I think relationship is everything. So I think it's 100% of the time.
I kind of knew you'd say that, but yeah. So it isn't just about understanding my internal stuff. It's about all of my community and how I think about my community and how much I believe in myself based on how much support I feel like I have from the people around me.
Yes. And it's really interesting since I got married and my husband and I have had our own issues going to therapy, it's really kind of blown open the doors of attachment and what happened to us as children and why we were expecting things from each other. So it's even back to being an infant. It's just crazy how we are so affected and hold on to things.
And I love that. I mean, because part of the goal of doing this podcast is to normalize the need for couples therapy, not just therapy itself, but couples therapy. So give them a plug, Sweetness. Why should people go to couples therapy?
Just so you can really have an extraordinary marriage. And even if you don't feel that you have a problem per se, I think couples therapy can really open up the doors to conversations that you're not going to have sitting across the table from each other, because the therapist asks these questions that maybe you're afraid to ask your partner or you never thought of asking. And then there's this work that you can do together, hand in hand and separately, to heal things that you may not even realize you've brought into the relationship. And my husband and I thought, like, we're great. We're both coaches. There's no way we're going to need therapy. But oh my goodness, coaching only goes so far. So the therapy has really made our marriage extraordinary. And we did go through some really hard things during COVID. And that was when we were like, let's take our tools to a different level, because we don't want to get a divorce. And we want to be able to work through this because, life is always going to throw things at us. Maybe not another COVID, but it's going to throw something else. And we know that. So we want tools. So next time something big happens, we can remember and go back to our therapy journals and our homework and the books that we were told to read and help ourselves. And then there's always the therapist that we can call.
I love that you said that you don't necessarily have to be broken to go to couples therapy. That is so important to highlight and repeat and put like a neon sign around, because so many couples think that we don't need to go unless we're at like divorce threshold or until things are like horrific. And so you're a proponent as a coach who's always actively doing good self-care and doing your meditation and checking in, that like recognizing that there's a void or that there's a tool. It doesn't mean that we're broken or dysfunctional. It's we want to keep maintenance.
Yeah, and we heard Dax Shepard and his wife, Kristen Bell, talk about using therapy as a prophylactic for their marriage. And so when the big problems come up, and we thought that that was genius, because why not have a monthly session? Maybe you're not actively going through something, but a check-in is, we go to the doctors for our bodies. Like, why don't we go to a therapist for our relationships?
Yeah. Taking some vitamins and supplements for your relationship. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people possibly wonder, well, what will we talk about if everything's great? And it's astonishing how many clients I have that are like, we have no idea what we're going to talk about. And then like, it's already time for the session to be over. And they're like, wait, we're still just unpacking things. And I'm like, that's what happens, right? If you stop and reflect on the relationship, that is sort of the work, is not just being on autopilot and keep moving forward, but stopping and saying, what do we want to give ourselves credit for that we did really well this month that normally we may not have handled as well? Or what's something that maybe is a conversation we didn't have because we ran out of time, but now we've scheduled time to like work on our relationship.
Yeah, and it's like personal development never ends. So whether you're doing it as a couple or you're doing it by yourself, it's just like, if you have a growth mindset and you want to continue to grow and become the best version of yourself, every year there's an opportunity to learn something new and be better. And I think for me as a perfectionist growing up, I thought there's a finish line. There's always a finish line, but there isn't with therapy and coaching. You can do these things forever and always find something to talk about, always find something to work on, because we are a work in progress, and that's just being human.
Well, and we will always have new situations that we hadn't anticipated, right? I mean, it's just a constant building upon the tools that you already have. And then it's like, well, I've never seen it quite this way before. I might need a little zhuzhing, but I definitely already know what tool to grab versus like, I got nothing. I don't know. There's nothing in my toolbox, which feels so much worse when you come to those stumbling blocks in life.
Yeah. And I think for my husband and I, during COVID, we received an infertility diagnosis. And so that really was some unpacking and just really going through that together and grieving. But it's been a while. It's been like 2 years, 3 years since the diagnosis. And now there's this new thing that's coming up for me where it's like childless during the holidays. And I wasn't expecting that because I had said, well, this is great. We're going to travel. It's just us. We're best friends. This is going to be awesome. And then grief just popped up. And so that's a great place for a therapist to work with me and him on how do we deal with childlessness during the holidays? What does this mean for us? And it's not necessarily a crisis. It's just an area of growth for us to what does this now mean? How do we define holidays going forward?
And your grief may not look the same as your partner's grief. And so sometimes having that third person there to help acknowledge that it's both grief. They're just different versions of grief. Or how do I hold space for my partner's grief when it doesn't look like my grief? Or giving you permission not to have to fix your partner's feelings are all wonderful reasons to go see someone when this stuff comes up.
And also giving your partner permission to maybe not cry as hard as you. That was something I had to learn.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that because he's not as demonstrative with his emotions that he doesn't have them.
Correct.
So let's shift to the books. You've written, like, how many books have you? She's like a book writing machine. How many have you written?
So I have 3 out and 1 coming out in 2 weeks.
Tell me about the one coming out in 2 weeks.
So it's a companion journal to my first book, Moonlight Gratitude, which is 365 nighttime meditations to help you calm your mind as you go to sleep. So this is now a journal, basically monthly to go with the full moon each month to really reflect on the month's theme. And it has 4 to 5 questions in there to think about during the month based on the theme. So for instance, December's theme is reflection and it's the cold moon. So we're getting all cozy and we're resting and rejuvenating for springtime because winter's about to set in. And so it's really reflecting on the year and allowing yourself the time to rejuvenate and rest. Because I think in our society, it's really easy to just go 100% all the time. But winter actually is a time for us to cozy up, hibernate, rest for when we have to run the marathon in the spring.
So giving ourselves permission, which is great to hear because I have so many clients right now who are like, I feel so lazy. I want to put on my pajamas at 6 because it looks like it's 10 o'clock outside. And that what you're saying is that's okay to give ourselves permission that this is sort of the cycle of life and our body knows when to hibernate like Yogi Bear, that we're supposed to like take that time to have comfort and a season of rest.
Yeah. And just think about the food that we make during the winter. Like soup is totally comfort food. We bake bread. And so I think because we have electricity and the Industrial Revolution, it's so easy to just keep going. But our bodies and nature we're all cyclical. There's a time to rest. And so this is the perfect time. And if you feel like putting on PJs at 6 p.m. and not being outside when it's dark and cold, cool.
So a lot of your books have like this sort of perspective of mindfulness, right? Am I interpreting them
they're
correctly?
all mindful. Yes,
and
very much so.
If there's some people that are listening to this and they're like, I love this phrase mindfulness, but I don't really know what it means. How would you define it?
It's just taking notice of the moment and the things in front of you. It's not future tripping or past ruminating. It's the present moment. You are here. Right now is what's important. And so being mindful is saying, what can I do right now? What is happening right now? What do I smell? What do I see? What do I feel? Instead of, which we all love to do, future tripping. Like, what do I have to do? What's my to-do list? Or how in the hell am I going to get over this thing that happened 5 years ago? So I think mindfulness is really about the present moment.
And so to break it down for those of us that aren't as like articulate about it as you are, I kind of identify it as I'm sitting in something that I really looked forward to doing, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do when I get home. Right.
Yep.
Or like I'm
Mhm.
at this concert that I bought tickets for a month ago, and I'm supposed to be sitting there enjoying this musician. And I'm like, I wonder if I should put the trash out when I get home. I wonder if I should send that email to my client. That's not being
Mhm.
present. That's not being in the thing that you were anticipating and enjoying it. You're letting your mind go on autopilot to the to-dos and the shoulds.
Yeah, I think the email inbox is a perfect example because how many times, because we can look at our emails on our phones, how many times do we look at an email, open it, and then for like, we don't sit there and respond, it's just open and then we forget, or a text, and it's like not mindfully using technology. It's like, if I'm going to check email, I'm going to respond while I'm in front of it, as opposed to, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, it's been a week, but whatever. And I think our technology really keeps us from being mindful.
And that is one of the main complaints that I get from lots of my couples, is that my partner is not being present with me, or every time I look over, they're lost in their phone and it's supposed to be our downtime. Do you have any tips for couples about how to create a ritual of connection around mindfulness and to be present with each other?
So my husband and I have a date night, and he likes to keep his phone in the car when we go into dinner because he knows that he has the urge to look at the phone. And so I think if your couples have this urge and they know it, like, leave the phone in the car. If there's a QR code on the table for a menu, they have paper menus. Like, you do not need your phone in the restaurant. And the other thing is, we just know when we have together time. So we just like kind of schedule it in. It doesn't sound very sexy, but you just have to know that this is the time that we're not going to be on our phones. And then there's also gap out time where it's like, yeah, you're going to go be on your phone, cool, and not getting offended. Because I think there's room to be offended if it's like, you're always on your phone. But if it's agreed upon that I'm just going to go do my thing
Mhm.
and I'm not going to pay attention to you, that's okay.
I think that comes up a lot where I have to kind of give my clients permission to take space. And I think
Mhm.
that because we don't think it's okay to tell our partner, hey, I need some downtime, I need to like reboot the mechanism, that we don't give ourselves permission because we think it'll hurt them or they think we don't care. So we grab this phone because it's a tool that allows us to take that downtime, but we don't have to physically leave our partner's body. And we think that we're multitasking, but we're
Mhm.
not. Like, what, to your point, is we all need time where we get to like process and just be vacant and not have anything that we have to think about or do, and that giving ourselves permission for that versus telling ourselves that we have to be present 24/7 is not reasonable and sustainable.
Yeah, and something we've learned based on our attachment styles is I'm the avoidant. So I need to say, I need 30 minutes. I need an hour. I'm not leaving you. I'm going to go read, or I'm going to go be on my phone. And that has really helped our relationship immensely because it's not just me escaping, it's me saying, no, this is how I recharge. And he really understands that. So now I almost don't even have to say it because he's just like, oh, she's recharging. And he
Mhm.
respects that about me.
Great. Love that. You guys are very healthy, but I already knew this about
I mean, we had to learn these tools though, and this was really helpful for us to like communicate where we're at.
So, what other tips do you have for couples that want to incorporate mindfulness into their relationship or their ways of being with each other?
I think one of the most important things is taking time to yourself to meditate because that helps you quiet the hamster wheel
Mhm.
in your head. So I always say to people who are like, well, I don't know how to meditate, just sit for a minute, like put a timer and sit and breathe for a minute. That is meditating. And don't worry about the thoughts that come in your head. Thoughts don't die when you're meditating, but sitting and becoming mindful of the moment and connecting with your breath is such a great gift to yourself, but also the people in your lives. Because when a fight comes up or when there's a reaction that you feel for some reason, you can remember, oh, I have breath. I have a moment, I can collect myself, and it's a muscle you have to teach yourself. So
Do
I think go
do
ahead.
you recommend like starting by yourself and then maybe doing it with your partner? Is that a helpful thing, or is that too distracting?
I mean, if a couple can do it together, cool, but I think it's really important that you do it by yourself. I don't know many couples that are meditating together unless it's like a workshop. My husband and I don't meditate together. It's, and I also prefer guided or music, and he prefers nothing. So we meditate differently. And so that's the other thing, is figure out, what does stillness mean to you?
Mm.
And the other thing that's been really helpful is journaling, and kind of like yelling at your journal instead of your partner. It's been really helpful for us.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about like punctuation, grammar. You can like drop all the F-bombs that you want. It's there. It's a blank canvas. It's for you. How do you and your partner then like navigate these potentials for your partner to go read your journal? Like, do you have like an honor system with each other that's our space? Do you do it on a computer with a password? How does somebody start journaling and know that it's safe?
Well, for us, we just trust each other. So we both have a paper journal, because I do believe that writing with your hand is a lot more effective to get your thoughts out, whether it's about your partner or just whatever stress you're going through. And if you have a partner that is going to read it, then yeah, do an electronic journal with the password. But I do think that it helps get all the gunk out. So then you can say, I've processed this, I wrote about this, and this is what's hurting me, or, this bothered me today when you said this, because the reaction's going to want to scream at them and tell them how horrible they are, when really it's just a reaction reacting, and they're not that horrible.
Great tips. So we've learned we should start meditating so that we can calm ourselves down to be a better partner. We should be aware of maybe when we're not being present with our relationship, or when we're spending time together, that we've gone off somewhere else. And that journaling is an important part of kind of processing who you are, so that you can articulate back to your partner your needs.
Mm-hmm.
You are just as delightful as I knew that you would be on this. I'm so grateful that I've got to meet you, because you have just been a nice kind of reminder of the value of the work that life coaches do. And that I love that there's this idea that they can marry together with what therapists do and create more of a community of mental health awareness. And I'm really grateful for the work that you're doing, and for getting the chance to get to know you more.
And I'm really grateful for you. And when I visited your office, which is absolutely gorgeous, I could just feel the love in your staff and in each room. And I think the Relationship Place is an awesome tool for people who do live in San Diego and maybe wondering what it's like to have couples therapy, because I don't think you need to think you need it to go to couples therapy.
I appreciate that, my love. I that's music to my ears. So thank you for that. So tell us more. Remind us your new book. Where can we find it? Where can we find you?
So my new book is Moonlight Gratitude, a journal, and you can find it anywhere your favorite books are sold, with all my other 3 books. You can find me online at Souls Adventures. That's SOULS, and then the word adventures. Or you can type my name in, Emily Silva. I have a website, soulsadventures.com, and I love to hear from readers. It just really makes my heart sing.
Check out her website. It's beautiful. It's got stunning pictures, and it's very well written. I can tell you spent a lot of time on it. So yes, definitely go check out your website. Thank you again for visiting, Emily. I am grateful for your time, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, Dana.
This has been the D-Spot Podcast with Dr. Dana McNeil. To learn more about Dr. Dana's practice, simply visit us at www.danamcneil.com.